Welcome to Sterling Visionary Voices, the podcast dedicated to bringing you diverse, innovative leadership insights and actionable strategies for success. Join hosts Laura McNeil and Bob Madeiros as they explore the art and science of role model leadership through thought-provoking conversations with real professionals. Whether you're a seasoned leader or aspiring to excellence, Sterling Visionary Voices is your guide to navigating the complexities of your leadership journey.
Hello and welcome to Sterling Visionary Voices. My name is Bob Madeiros and I'm excited to introduce my guest today, Mr. Jovan Glasgow. Jovan's a visionary entrepreneur and motivational speaker working to empower purpose-driven individuals and organizations. Well, welcome, Jovan. I'm so happy to be able to speak with you today.
The honor is mine. I'm excited. I'm fired up. I'm so pumped to be here. Looking forward to this. What promises to be a very dynamic conversation. I feel it already.
All right. Well, I certainly hope I can keep my end of the bargain up there. So let's start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and the history of your organization.
Incredible. I always think it's great to go back and really give you some context to put Jovan Glasgow, to make Jovan Glasgow make sense. So the more you hear me talk, you'll hear kind of an accent jump out at you. I am not from Texas, even though I live in Texas now. I don't have a Texan accent, but originally from the beautiful Caribbean islands of Antigua and Barbuda. If you took a map out and you were to look southeast of Puerto Rico, it's the island that looks like somebody just dropped a pen on it. Very small island, but filled with people who have big hearts. Very exciting upbringing. An interesting fact, I always try to put this in here. My island is known for its 365 beautiful beaches. So really, really obviously tropical island and humble beginnings. And so at about the age of 18, my parents wanted me, like any good parent would, to have an opportunity that they didn't have. So they came up with what they thought at the time was the most amazing idea to send an 18-year-old boy struggling with puberty and identity to college in South Beach, Miami, Florida. So I went to college in Miami, studied aeronautical engineering. And really my goal was to go on and obviously work in the engineering space and also to be a pilot. But about my junior year, my father, who to this day is one of my heroes, came down with a rare form of cancer, which we thought would just be a obstacle in his story, but it ended up being the thing that took him out. And so he lost his battle to cancer. And looking back in hindsight, that really became the catalyst to what I believe to be my life's calling. Interesting enough, after that moment, one of the things I realized so deeply about my father's life was nobody talked about the clothes he wore, the cars he drove. You know, those things were nice, but what they talked about really is the impact that he made on their lives. And that really spoke loudly to me. I think at that point, to some degree, I made this conscious decision that I was going to use my gift, my life, to impact people at scale. Didn't really know what it was going to look like at that point. So I started my career with a very well-known, reputable company and worked my way up to executive leadership pretty quick. And that's when I started to really develop this love and this passion for just helping individuals and organizations really achieve unprecedented excellence. And to do so, obviously, without losing or compromising what's most important, which is the vitality and integrity of their people. And so everything started from that. Obviously started sharing a lot of powerful messages online, went through a whole decade of studying and doing some consultant work and all these different things. And from that, Glasgow International, which is my company now, was birthed. And so we're really fired up, excited about making a dent in this space from a people and process standpoint. So excited to be here.
Well, fantastic. Well, and it's interesting. I was doing some reading on you, and the particular article was discussing how you may started in that whole corporate structure of, and then so what actually specifically drove you from that kind of work model to this current model of helping others to be purpose driven?
Incredible. A lot of just my success to date, I have to give really the recognition to the corporate structure that I grew up in. I learned a lot about business, learned a lot about organizations, learned a lot about systems, of course, working inside of a very robust and intense training and development focused company. While working in that company, I realized that even though we were successful to some degree, there was a lack of fulfillment. And what I mean by that is success, I would define as the accomplishment of a thing. Fulfillment is being something. So I found a lot of times, whether it's on an executive level or even just people in the organization, they've been doing really well in one area of life, but holistically, they were struggling. And something stirred up in me because obviously my journey started with the death of my father. And so I always said that nothing puts life in perspective like death. And I realized that when you do the research, I think it's about 90,000 plus hours is the average amount of time that somebody spends working. And I realized that if I want to make a true impact, I had to impact people where they work. And so I knew that that was my goal and my focus and my desire, and to be honest, my purpose and calling in this life. But obviously, to do that, I would have to step outside of the confines of one organization, and so that I can help multiple organizations to achieve and do the same thing. So that's really what started this journey of, hey, I'm doing a lot of great things here. I walked away from a pretty strong role. I'd achieved a lot of success at that point. But for me, I was driven so much by the purpose that I knew I had to make a decision that may at that time looked like a backward step, but I knew it was a step in the direction of my true calling.
Wow. Well, yeah, it's interesting. You saw this as an opportunity to help more people. And I think that's really profound.
Today's episode is sponsored by the 32nd Annual Sterling Leadership Conference, happening May 29th through 31st at the Hyatt Regency Orlando. Whether you're a seasoned executive or an aspiring leader, the Sterling Conference promises an extraordinary journey. Don't miss this opportunity to ignite your leadership excellence. Visit thesterlingconference.com to learn more.
I was reading in some background material that you've got a special passion for supporting healthcare organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about this direction?
Incredible. Obviously going through a lot of the journey with my father as he went through his struggles, we had an opportunity to be served by people who at one point would have been considered strangers, but throughout the process really became a part of our family. And so I saw the nurses and the doctors and the administrative staff really given their time, their passion, their energy to serve our family member when we're in one of the most unstable points in our lives. And so kind of coming up through my progression as a professional, I always felt this pull and this tug to towards helping people who help people. And as I peel back the layers a bit, I realized that oftentimes we dehumanize people that don't appear to need help. We figure for healthcare professionals, they help people for a living, so it should be easy for them to help themselves. It should be easy for the system to help itself. But I realize that's a misconception that we have. And so my passion really is about doing the work where I believe has the greatest need and eventually has some form of the greatest impact. In diving more into that space, I obviously learned about the gaps that existed in just really helping these organizations create cultures and systems that prioritize the vitality of their people so that their people could obviously provide the highest level of quality care to people who need it most at a time that they need it most. And so for us, it was really, how do we focus in a place where we can always create this beautiful fusion between purpose and passion and profit. And so it really birthed, our focus and obviously our commitment to impacting individuals in the healthcare space. My sister as well, who is my only sibling, she's a medical doctor as well now. So I think the story of my father tremendously impacted us in such a way that we want to use what impacted us as a way to impact other people.
Wow, that's really beautiful, actually. So I read somewhere that your motto is the absolute worst life to live is a half-lived one. That's pretty powerful. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Absolutely. I think most times, whether we realize it or not, in this life, we can go from living to existing really, really quick. No matter our age, stage, belief, background, I say whether you're rich, poor, not sure, or could use some more, there's one common thing that we're all going to have to deal with at some point, and that's adversity. We're going to deal with some level of adverse situation in our lives. And I think what happens is that the adversity really impacts our expectation. It impacts our expectation of how we think things should go, of life, whatever the case may be. And if we're not careful, we can settle into a space of existing or surviving, and we can label that as our norm. I have a premise that says that we got to be really careful what you actually label as your norm, because your norm sets the tone to what you will accept or reject. What I mean by that is a person who views poverty as their norm will never become wealthy, not because they can't, but because they won't. A person who views struggling constantly as their norm won't actually thrive, not because they can't, but because they won't. And so one of the things that I realized throughout my time, whether it's working with an individual, whether it's working in my executive coaching practice, whether it's working with organizations at scale, oftentimes there's so many people who are surviving and existing and not necessarily living. I have a premise that says everything that is alive may have life, but not everything that has life is actually living. And so what living looks like to me is intentionality. It's stretching, it's believing, it's dreaming. It's not looking at things as an opportunity, but allowing that opportunity, or really an opposition, sorry, but allowing that opposition to create opportunity. It's knowing that when you hear no, it's not a rejection of your capabilities, but it's an acronym that stands for new opportunities. It's knowing that when you're inundated with problems, that a problem is just purpose in disguise. It is really when we get to this point that we understand the principle and power of duality, that everything has to have two sides. If it does not have two sides, it cannot exist. So if there's a up, there's a down. If there's a left, there's a right. If there's a dark, there's a light. So if there are problems, there's purpose. If there's obstacles, there's opportunities. So what it means to live is to have the passion, the zeal, the excitement, the energy to pursue, to dream, to accomplish. That's what it looks like. And so my premise and my goal is not just to help people to achieve good results. My goal is to help them to truly maximize their capacity, because there is a difference between ability and capacity. And so I think that when I encapsulate that thought into a simple one-liner, that the absolute worst life to live is a half-lived one, it is really a reminder, and to some degree a push, not to define failure as a missed outcome, but to understand that failure is always a lack of input, right? And so that is what I mean when I speak to the fact that the absolute worst life to live is a half-lived one.
Wow. Wow, very profound. Oh, golly. Hey, I'm looking through my notes here, and I'm personally thrilled to see that you'll be a keynote speaker for the Sterling Leadership Conference in Orlando. Can you give us any tidbit of insight as to what we might expect to experience during your keynote?
I am so excited for this year's conference, and having the opportunity to be the closing keynote speaker. I have goosebumps just thinking about it. Not just obviously the energy and the passion you're going to get once Jovan Glasgow steps into a room, but really the insights. Really, really important to me to make sure that not only what I share is profound, but it is also practical. So my topic and really my focus is this thing called the authentic advantage. The authentic advantage, subtitle is Transforming Your Organization for Unprecedented Excellence. That's really a conversation around elevation. Ooh, I'm feeling this ready. That's really a conversation that really speaks to how we go from ability to capacity. You see, ability is really the ceiling of our circumstance. Capacity is the ceiling of our greatness. And so what I mean by that, when I break this down, is that oftentimes we can be achieving from our ability, but not necessarily achieving from our capacity. You see, when we focus on capacity, we change the landscape for competition. I have a premise that says that if we're not careful, competition can create limitations. Is what I mean by that. The competition can actually create a ceiling on your capacity. Zig Ziglar has a quote that says, you'll hit or come close to whatever you're aiming at. And oftentimes, competition, our circumstance, can set the ceiling of what is possible. And we could hit that ceiling or exceed it and celebrate beating something that's actually a limitation on what we could have accomplished had we leaned into capacity. So it's not saying that we should not value competition. Competition should give us a point of reference, but not a point of focus. Woo! I'm fired up already. So the authentic advantage is really about a strategy that helps you to identify your organization's capacity and move your team, move your organization into the realm and into the direction of that capacity so that you can achieve unprecedented excellence. The goal is to make sure that whatever we thought we could achieve surprises us when we get there and we exceed it tremendously. So it's a conversation around capacity. How do you achieve capacity in your own leadership? How do you achieve capacity in the leaders around you? How do you achieve capacity amongst your team? And more importantly, as we do that, how do we really get to capacity as an organization? I don't know what to expect, but I can tell you this, I'm leaving all of me on that stage and I got a whole lot to leave. So I'm fired up about that and excited.
Excellent. Well, I got to tell you, it has truly been my pleasure talking with you today and appreciate all that you've shared with us. And I look forward to seeing you in person at the conference, because I think that's going to be a heck of a closing. We'll put it that way. Just looking at the energy that you give off.
Yes.
So I appreciate your time, Jovan. Thank you very much. To find out more about Jovan, go to iamjovanglasgow.com. And don't forget, you can catch him live at the 32nd Annual Sterling Leadership Conference, May 29th through the 31st at the Hyatt Regency Orlando. For more information, go to thesterlingconference.com. Thank you very much, Jovan, for joining me, and all of you out there for joining us on the Sterling Visionary Voices. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Sterling Visionary Voices, Insights for Role Model Leadership from the Sterling Council. Discover more and connect with us at sterlingvisionaryvoices.com.